People are spending $400,000 on apartments right now. Meanwhile, someone listed 15 acres with a brick home in Kentucky for under $50,000, a new mountain cabin in Oklahoma for less than a used car, a 2,000 square foot house in Alabama for 6 months of rent. Nobody is talking about these places. That is why they are still available. Number 10. 804 South Division, Mansfield, Arkansas, $75,000. We start in Mansfield, Arkansas, and honestly, this is already going to mess with your head if you live anywhere near a major city. The house at 804 South Division is listed at $75,000. You get 1.74 acres, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and 1,260 square feet. That is not some gutted shell on a sliver of dirt. That is a real home with real rooms and enough yard around it to actually feel like yours. Mansfield sits about 25 miles south of Fort Smith, roughly a 30-minute drive according to the listing, so you are not stuck in the middle of nowhere wondering where the nearest grocery store is. For a number 10 entry, this already sets a dangerous tone, because if the bottom of this list looks like this, what do you think the top is going to look like? Number 9, 1112 County Road Y, Plainview, Texas, $74,900. That Arkansas deal was solid. This one in Plainview, Texas makes it look small. The property at 1112 County Road Y is listed at $74,900 and sits on 3.11 acres. You get a 2,036 square foot ranch style house, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a second smaller house, and a metal shop. Go ahead and read that list again. 2 structures plus a shop on over 3 acres, and the price is still under $75,000. Plainview is the county seat of Hale County, sitting right at the intersection of major highways. So this is not some mystery lot in the desert that nobody can find on a map. It is a real West Texas town with services, roads, and a local economy that actually functions. You know what separates a cheap listing from a good cheap listing? When you stop thinking about the price and start thinking about what you would actually do with the place. This one does that. Number 8, 9272 Morrison Road, Rushford, New York, $69,900. Now we leave the dry ranch country behind and go somewhere completely different. Rushford, New York feels less like a budget listing and more like a hidden cabin retreat that someone forgot to price correctly. The house at 9272 Morrison Road is listed at $69,900. You get 5.4 wooded acres, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and 1,008 square feet in a home built in 1960. The listing calls it a rustic gem with a private driveway, private well, and septic system, plus garage parking and room to explore. It is being sold as is, so yes, the house needs work. But 5 wooded acres and a full 3-bedroom layout in New York State for under $70,000. That is the kind of number that makes people check the listing 3 times because they are convinced something is wrong with it. Nothing is wrong with it. It is just upstate New York doing what upstate New York does quietly while everyone argues about Brooklyn rent. Number 7. 685 County 181 Utah, Alabama, $59,900. If that New York deal raised your eyebrows, Utah, Alabama is about to make them disappear into your hairline. The property at 685 County 181 is listed at $59,900. 3 acres, 3 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, and 2,054 square feet, built in 1982. That is one of the biggest homes in this entire countdown, and it is still under $60,000. The listing is upfront that the house needs love and calls it an investor special, but then it drops a detail that changes the whole picture. The property sits less than 3 minutes from Interstate 20/59, so this is not cheap because it is buried somewhere that GPS cannot find. It is cheap while sitting next to a major highway corridor that connects Birmingham to Meridian. Big house, real acreage, interstate access, and a price that would barely cover a security deposit and first month in most cities. That gap between what this costs and what it gives you is almost uncomfortable. Number 6, 7884 Woolwine Highway, Woolwine, Virginia, $52,500. We just saw 2,000 square feet in Alabama for under 60 grand. Now Virginia shows up and plays a completely different card. The home at 7884 Woolwine Highway is listed at $52,500. It sits on 5.456 acres with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and 1,120 square feet. And here is what really sets this one apart from almost everything else on the list. The house was built in 2001. Most cheap rural properties lose people the instant they hear the build year. Something from 1920 or 1950 makes buyers imagine sagging floors and mystery plumbing. A 2001 build kills that fear immediately. The listing also mentions mountain views and an end-of-road setting, and Martinsville is only about 33 miles away, over 5 acres, a full 3-bedroom layout, a relatively modern home, and a mountain view in Virginia for $52,500. That is the kind of listing that makes people quietly open Zillow in another tab and start comparing. Number 5. 12,588 Cottage Road, South Dayton, New York, $47,900. Alright, this is where the list crosses into, wait, go back, say that number one more time territory. South Dayton, New York. The property at 12,588 Cottage Road is listed at $47,900. You get 6.15 acres, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and 1,814 square feet. The house was built in 1850, and the listing shows a recent price drop from $49,900. Over 1,800 square feet, over 6 acres, a 3-bedroom layout, and the whole thing costs less than what a lot of people now pay for a decent used car. The listing is currently sight unseen only and warns buyers not to disturb occupants, so this is not the cleanest or easiest deal you will find, but we are ranking affordability here, and on pure numbers alone, this one hits like a freight train. You know what is wild? We are only halfway through this list, and it only gets more ridiculous from here. Number 4. 1017 West 565 South, Owensville, Indiana, $49,900. After that 6-acre monster in New York, Owensville, Indiana brings the energy back down to something quieter and more practical. The property at 10,170 West 565 South is listed at $49,900 and sits on 2.44 acres. You get a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home built in 1900, a detached garage, and a barn or outbuilding. Most cheap listings force you to pick one thing. You either get the land or the structures or the location. This one gives you a little bit of all three. The listing says the property has privacy while still sitting within several miles of dining, everyday services, and small local businesses. No drama, no gimmick. Just a home with extra buildings, enough land to feel like your own space, and a price that does not need any convincing. Sometimes the best deal on a list is the one that sounds the most normal. This is that deal. Number 3. Mingo County, Williamson, West Virginia, $54,900. That quiet Indiana deal was nice. Williamson, West Virginia is about to turn the volume back up. This property in Mingo County is listed at $54,900. 2 acres, 3 bedrooms, 2 full baths, a ranch home built in 1950, sitting inside city limits. The house needs repairs and is being sold as is, but the listing drops a detail that gives this one an angle nobody else on the list can match. It says the home could make an excellent rental property with close access to the Hatfield-McCoy trail system, and trail system materials for 2025 confirm Williamson as one of the ATV-friendly towns tied directly to that network. So you are not just buying a cheap house in Appalachia, you are buying a cheap house in a place that already has tourism demand and recreation traffic flowing through it. A 3-bed, 2-bath, city limits ranch home with rental potential and trail access for under $55,000. That is not just affordable, that is strategic. Number 2. 275 Rocky Hollow Road, Raccoon, Kentucky, $49,900. Everything we have seen so far has been impressive. This one in Raccoon, Kentucky is the entry that genuinely makes people emotional. The property at 275 Rocky Hollow Road is listed at $49,900. 15 acres, 2 bedrooms, 1 full bath plus 1 half bath, 1,400 square feet, brick construction, built in 1950. 15 acres would already stop people mid-scroll, but then you add that the house is brick, comes with a partial unfinished basement, a covered porch, open concept living, and a large living room, and suddenly this feels nothing like a budget deal. It feels like a proper rural homestead. The listing also shows a recent $3,000 price drop, which only sharpens the value even further. This is the kind of property that hits differently because it sounds like the old version of American real estate that people assume vanished decades ago. A solid home on serious acreage for under $50,000. It did not vanish, it just moved to Raccoon, Kentucky, and only one listing in this countdown managed to beat it. Number 1, Poteau Mountain Cabin, Heavener, Oklahoma, $54,900. The top spot does not go to the biggest house. It does not go to the cheapest sticker price either. It goes to the listing that feels like the purest version of the entire idea behind this video. The Poteau Mountain Cabin in Heavener, Oklahoma is listed at $54,900 and sits on 3.52 acres. The cabin itself is brand new for 2026, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, 320 square feet. The listing describes it as sitting on the west side of the Poteau mountain range in a very remote, secluded wilderness setting surrounded by privately owned timberland. It is about 3.5 miles from Heavener and roughly 20 miles from Fort Smith, Arkansas. That is the magic. It sounds remote and scenic, but reachable. It sounds small, but on purpose. And it sounds affordable in a way that still feels polished, intentional, and genuinely desirable. A brand new cabin on acreage near a known regional city is exactly the kind of listing people screenshot, text to 3 friends, and start building an escape plan around. That is why it closes the list. Not because it is the cheapest, because it is the one you actually picture yourself in. If you made it this far, you already think differently about real estate than most people. Hit subscribe. I find deals like these every single week.